Final seconds of the game, a chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks.
Hello, this is international football commentator Derek Ray, and you're listening to the Ranks FC podcast.
Hello Ranks Squad and welcome to Ranks FC. It's a bonus edition of your favourite football podcast, talking all things MLS ahead of the season beginning later this week. My name is Jack Collins and I'll be your host there, and I'm joined by Ranks FC's chief MLS correspondent, our lead writer in so many ways, Mr. Owen Murray, live from the West Coast. How you doing, mate?
Oh, it's nice and early, bro. It's all good, though. We're having a good time. MLS is coming back next week, this weekend. It's going to be fantastic. I'm very excited.
Sun's going down for me. Sun's coming up for you. This is the 8-hour time difference I'm going to have to learn how to navigate with Dean. So we're thinking about it as a trial run in many ways. It's great to have you back on, mate. And I'm really excited about the start of this MLS season. Now, I know it's something close to your heart. Listeners will know it's something close to my heart as well as an MLS writer. So it's a really interesting campaign that's coming up on us. I wanted to work through a variety of different bits today. We'll have a look at who had the best off season, some of the teams that have had very, very stagnant off seasons as well, the outlook ahead of the season, a couple of the best new signings, and of course the kits as well, something that's been all over the news the last couple of days. So we'll start off with the best off season. Let's start high and then we'll work our way through low. Who's impressed you over the course of the quiet winter period, my friend?
And it's very interesting. One of the teams that's really excited me, and it's really because they made one big move, is FC Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they had a great year last year. Their growth has been really impressive throughout their time in the league. They started at the bottom. But they had a Supporters Shield winning campaign and then went out and got men's national team starter on his day, Miles Robinson. And added him to this defense that is just going to be very impressive. And if they can, continue to keep it together mostly in the way that they have, I think that's going to be a very strong team again in what's looking to be a stronger Eastern Conference here.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because obviously Jason Mosquera headed back to Wolves for a period. He's gone out on loan again now, but he had an incredible campaign. And I think that the growth that Premier League fans or Wolves fans would have been looking for was on full display. He started off a little bit shaky by the end of the campaign. It was pretty rock solid. Robinson's a different kind of mold of defender, I think, in many ways.
Yeah,
and yet, in this system with the three at the back, and he's not going to have to play that central role very often, we don't think, it will allow him to step out and do what I think he does best, which is get into those one-on-one situations with attackers kind of bearing down on him and making those tackles, because there are a few better, I think, one-on-one centre-backs in the entirety of the league, to be honest.
course. And, like the one kind of way you could get at FC Cincinnati is when they push their wingbacks forward last year, and then you can try to get at the back three, and Miazga was out for a little bit. But if you have at least one of those two back, I would feel confident that they're going to be really, really solid once again. And then, also in Ohio is Columbus, who just came off winning MLS Cup, and they've really only gotten better. They've just added a ton of pieces, really in league experience that I think is just going to not only keep them strong again in the East, but they're going to have a very, very nice brand of football. Wilfred Nancy obviously is going to stay. He's been, probably the most important piece of this. I'm very excited to see how Aiden Morris does with another year in this system. And even after losing Lucas Zelleran, they've proven that you can go on and continue to play very, very well in a league while playing nice soccer.
Yeah, I mean, I love Nancy, and I think, the Crew winning it all last season felt like a real kind of display of, whilst on the, in Miami and the whole thing going on and all of the star power and the star names, and quietly Columbus as a unit went through the motions and got better and better through the course of the season, got stronger and stronger as they played themselves into playoff contention. And by the end of it, ahead of MLS Cup, you're looking at it going, well, who's going to be able to deal with what the Crew can bring in attack, and who is going to be able to deal with this Nancy style of play? And ultimately the answer was nobody could. And that's why we got to where we got to at the end of last season. But I do think it's interesting how they keep that going and what that looks like over the course of the full regular season, because it's one thing obviously winning MLS Cup, and that's the the top draw, the top dog. But there's also another thing of being like, okay, can you do that now over the course of the full domestic season? Can you go and win the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup double? And if anyone feels like they're in a place to go on and grow that, look, the only major departure is Julian Gressel, who's obviously gone off to Miami on a free transfer. But what that opens up for other players coming through, and what that opens up in that we saw that Nancy didn't necessarily, trust might be the wrong word, but go for that Gressel ability to cross the ball in ahead of other players who fitted more into the keeping the ball, keeping that pressure on, keeping your foot on the throat kind of system.
Julian Gressel's honestly one of my favorite players out there, just because he can do so much.
Yeah.
But even in that system, they didn't need him to do so much. They needed him to do, they didn't be that player, and it didn't quite end up fitting like that. And, he could obviously do great things in Miami when he's crossing the ball to whoever they've got up there. But I think it's a very strong sign that they know what they're doing, that they're willing to get rid of him.
Yeah, definitely. I know there's one more mover who's intrigued you, and it's someone who, was in wooden spoon contention for the majority of last season.
Yeah, and it's a team from the Western Conference, which we've said is probably going to be weaker once again. It's the Colorado Rapids, who've just had maybe the best offseason out of all of them. They picked up, I'm just looking through their list right now, some great pieces that I really believe are going to just push them up those standings. Well, they picked up Zach Steffen off Man City. Obviously, he's been sitting there for a little while, but he is, more than a very good MLS goalkeeper. He'll be in contention for the Golden Glove. They picked up Sam Vines, who came out of their academy. He'll be a very solid option at left back. And then one of my favorite players, Georgia Mihailovic, former FC Dallas player, kind of went over to AZ Alkmaar, didn't quite work out there, but he's come back here, and he had some injury issues in the league when he was Montreal a little bit, but he's still looking very good. I think he could be a solid piece there for him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to doubt Mihailovic's quality, and it's a shame really that RZ stint didn't really work, because I thought he felt like a player that would be able to make that transition to European football, and the Eredivisie, to be honest, felt like a nice place for him to land. But RZ are having a bit of a weird campaign, turning things around after losing a couple of really key pieces last year. And I think it just felt like too much reinvention was going to not suit them very well. And look, they're doing fine in terms of how they're managing to get out of that. But I think you can understand why he wasn't maybe given the opportunities that maybe he deserved.
Oh, for sure.
He hasn't been hugely excited by the sounds of it about coming back to the Rapids of all places. But once he does get going, and as you say, with a couple of other really interesting additions as well, Löffelsend, I think, is just someone who you're like, okay, where's he going to play? We've seen him play in defense before. They announced him as a midfielder, which I thought was slightly strange. But if he is going to be, part of this midfield reinvention, which it felt like they needed. We speak about the Rapids, and the one real bright light in their campaign last year was Jack Price, who kind of played as that deep line quarterback kind of role, was able to create most of their chances, and then got injured, and completely the team completely fell apart in his absence. So it felt like something had to be changed there. It does feel like this midfield reinvention added to the Zach Steffen edition, which I think you're right, but also Chris Armas coming in as head coach. It's now like, what do the Rapids look like? And I think you're probably right in that they might not end up in contention this year, but I think in terms of where they were last year to where they might well be now, could be the biggest gap of anybody in the entire league.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm worried about with them is they're number 9 slot, because they have 3 19-year-olds and a 23-year-old. And that was really a spot that was tough for them last year. I would have loved to see them go out and get a guy in the league who they can have him up there if these guys lights are too bright. They've had Kai Kamara in the past, somebody like that, who they're happy just slotting in for a little bit. But I'm very interested to see how it works out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, anyone worth their salt with Mihailovic, if he does start to turn it up again, has the potential to go and score a lot of goals, because I don't think there's many better creators across the course of MLS in general. So we're talking about some interesting players. I would maybe add Atlanta to this list, because it's been an interesting offseason. Now, we talked about losing Miles Robinson, but I think in some ways the best thing Atlanta needed to do was try and keep hold of the 2 big guns. Obviously, Thiago Almada might leave in the summer. I mean, we might leave now. The window's open till April. But for now, it does look like he's sticking around in the 5 stripes. And Giakoumakis as well. It feels like if they can keep those 2 healthy, and it's a big if with Giakoumakis, because he has got injury concerns, which is why things haven't always gone to plan, wherever he's gone across the course of his career. But I do think that adding Dax McCarty to just add a little bit of balance to the midfield, because it felt like Atlanta last year, I think, had the capacity to almost beat anybody on their day, but also had the capacity to beat themselves semi-regularly in terms of losing control of games, throwing away leads, and just maybe not having that veteran presence to calm things down. And although obviously McCarty is 37 now, he's a pre-Beckham remnant of MLS in so many ways. But you're kind of looking at him and going, okay, if someone's going to be, one, a huge facet in the dressing room in terms of just making sure that everyone's on the same page, and 2, someone who can come on, in games or start certain games to be able to just keep everybody's composure and actually be that general in the midfield, Atlanta have enough talent to challenge at any given point. It's just a case of trying to bring it all together. And I think McCarty's a very, very smart addition from the 5 stripes.
No, absolutely. And I think it's going to be like, that's the kind of player we're talking about where, he's not going to start every game, but in that locker room, especially with a team that, they had a great start in the league. It's been a little bit rougher. This is maybe a make or break season for Gonzalo Pineda.
Yeah.
He'll be okay, and he's able to keep that dressing room level headed. I think that's a very smart move from Garth, who was the general manager up here in Seattle for a long time. He, very shrewd guy, and he knows how to make those moves, man.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the veteran presence is exactly what Atlanta needed. But from some good off seasons to some bad ones, Owen, who's stagnated and therefore potentially has the issue of maybe falling away from where they were last season?
And this is not as they've made more moves than I thought they have, but I'm very, very concerned about Austin. Just because their pickups, just very briefly, and the notable ones, they picked up a couple center backs, Matt Hedges and Brandon Craig. Matt Hedges is a league veteran. Craig is 19 from Philadelphia on loan. Diego Rubio out of Colorado, that's that forward that they lost. He's 30. A couple defenders, Memo Rodriguez off Los Angeles. They've picked up players, Jader Obrian, who didn't quite work out at their former teams. They're really betting on them playing well, but what they're very much betting on is Sebastian Driussi returning to pre-last year form. They really they rode his MVP level campaign to a very strong showing Western Conference Final 2 years ago, and then he wasn't quite the same because of course he wasn't. But they didn't prepare for that, and I don't think that they've quite prepared for it again this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think that I'm intrigued by what Rodolfo Borrell does there. And obviously part of the City Football Group for a long time, part of Pep Guardiola's kind of wider group for a long period of time as well. He has the nous, I suppose, to turn things around. And if he's given time, I think that his vision might be something that they can get behind in a couple of years. But I think this year might be tough.
Yeah, and I'm just worried. I mean, because they are a Western Conference team, and they have, again, that ability to kind of rise up very quickly. But there's a lot of tough games they're gonna have to go play, especially coming out of Texas. And they've got a great home environment, but they haven't been able to make it count.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else in the worried about pile?
I'm always worried about Toronto, man, because I felt that
it can't get much worse from rock bottom, can it?
Regardless of what they did this year, it was going to be tough to kind of rise up off the bottom of that pile. But looking at the teams above them in the Eastern Conference, they finished rock bottom. Like you mentioned, won 4 games. But Miami, should obviously. Chicago have made some great moves. NYCFC, I feel confident in. Not confident, but I feel confident in those teams that were also under the playoff line, that they're going to rise so much more than Toronto has. And it's a shame how much they've stagnated since 2016, 2017, when they were the class of the league. And with Giovinco and Altidore, you just seen them fall away, and they haven't made the moves that they've needed to. Guys like Iowa Akinola didn't work out, and they're just kind of clutching at straws, and they lost a really strong veteran presence in Matt Hedges to Austin.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It does feel like everyone else has moved out one way or another, right? Even teams like Charlotte, who have struggled in the last couple of years. I think bringing in Dean Smith is quite a sensible maneuver, especially with some of the names that were linked to that job. Actually going for someone who has coached teams to become better. You look at his Walsall side, you look at his Brentford side in the Championship, you look at even Aston Villa, which it felt like a new lease of life at that point. Yeah. I think that the pieces are in place, and there is a Brentford connection at Charlotte as well, which is an interesting one just to watch in terms of that link to maybe the Scandinavian base. I think that just having someone of Smith's caliber, I mean, obviously it's going to be a question of whether he can adapt or not, but I think having someone of Smith's caliber should allow Charlotte to just kick on a tad more than they have done. And that's not huge, the bar's quite low because Charlotte haven't been great, but I do think that feels like a more cohesive setup, and you add it to the new background with all of the training center put up, and it just feels like Charlotte are on a slow, steady path upwards.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that they're on that path. It could be, the model for that path is the FC Cincinnati path. It was a rough couple of years in the league, but they were really able to find their feet, trust a head coach, and
put the backroom staff in, right, as well, which I think is important, because since you've been ahead of the curve on that for some time, I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte start to find themselves on the upper echelons of that curve as well soon.
For sure.
All right, let's go to an outlook, shall we? The contenders, who's going to be, we've spoken about the fact that the West feels weaker than the East again. I don't think it was going to be, it would have taken something quite remarkable to turn that around, especially given that some of the teams who did fall behind that playoff line in the East are the likes of Inter Miami, who might not be the team to beat here. And I actually probably don't think they are, but obviously they're going to attract a lot of the attention. And eventually when you put this many good players in the team, they are going to hurt people across the course of a season. It just feels like there hasn't been enough movement to shift the balance. In fact, it's probably got worse.
No, absolutely not. And they'll be the ever-present contenders in the Western Conference. You got, your LAFC, your Seattle, those teams, but they'll be very, very dependent on a couple players. Seattle just, has a new number 10, Pedro de la Vega, who, he didn't play a ton during that preseason. It remains to be seen kind of what role he'll take on, because on those wings for Seattle, there are two, players who really looked great last season. You got Christian Roldan, who, he had a couple concussions, but when he's in that spot, he's one of the most valuable players in this team. And then your breakout Brazilian winger on the left, Leo Chu. And, at this point, Christian started as, a midfielder, but they've got a very, very strong set in the middle there. And it's looking tougher and tougher to move him back in, and keeping him on the right might be the move. But then you're looking at dropping Leo Chu, he was last year's breakout star for the Sounders. And so
how do you do that? He is a dribbly boy.
He is fantastic. such a great kid to interview too. Like he speaks 4 languages. He's 22. He's having a killer time in Seattle. It looks like he maybe was going to leave, but I'm very glad he's staying.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's fun, isn't it? And it's nice when these kind of things come off, I suppose, is the easy way to put it. And he felt like a gamble, and yet we're here at this point going, oh, great, let's do it. Let's see what it looks like. And I think it's a nice space for Seattle to be in, because I think you're right in that we're not looking at a team here who I think is the greatest version of this Sounders side, and it would be incredibly difficult for a team to become that immediately. But the potential for growth feels like it's there in the Sounders. And as we say about the rest of the conference feeling still relatively weak, you'd bet your bottom dollar that they'll be there or thereabouts. And if these players explode, then suddenly you're talking about a team that might well be at the sharp end of MLS Cup, let alone the Western Conference.
Yeah, I believe that for this Sounders team, the ceiling is as high as Pedro de la Vega and Raul Ruidiaz can make it, but the floor is nice and high as the league's best defense last year can keep it. And the Golden Glove winner last year, and that is the least of my concerns, that defense. They didn't lose anybody, and as long as they hold that, it's going to be very strong against teams like LAFC, who they're facing on that opening day. But LAFC are very interesting because they spent, most of the offseason in Carlos Vela purgatory.
Yeah.
It's no idea if he's coming back. It's been a very weird amount of time. In that, I'm thankful that the Sounders dealt with Ladero so early. He announced he was leaving. They were able to really move on from him and pick up De La Vega. It's been a very interesting. LAFC did almost nothing for the first month or two after MLS Cup.
Yeah.
They've picked back up Atuesta. They've picked up a couple players who look like they will be good fits. But I'm a little bit worried about how they're going to gel and if they can really burst out of the gate early, which has really been what they do.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a similar case for LAFC. Now, there's probably less turnover, right? We're not talking about all of the players leaving in the certain ways, but I do think that obviously quite a lot of it now hangs on Tomas Angel, who's come in, son of Juan Pablo, for those of you of a Villa persuasion, who now works obviously at the club, and he was part of Chivas's unit. So his son coming in and playing as basically like their spiritual successor team is a cool place to be, I think. But a lot rides on whether that transition works. And that's where I think the difference is between the East and the West, maybe, in that the top sides in the West feel like they're relying on a few things coming good, whereas I can't see the same level of kind of jeopardy for the top teams in the East.
Absolutely. As long as you're not talking about Inter Miami, man, because a lot of people are very high on them. I'm not in that camp. I think that the amount of time that you're going to see their 4 guys play together is very, very low. Just, but we've seen it in preseason. We've seen they barely played together at all. And if that's what they're relying on, I don't particularly believe in that squad around them, Julian Gressel aside, like we discussed. And it's very likely they're going to have to dump some of those quality players because, hilariously, the roster rules and regulations are not official yet for MLS with a week to go until the season. But the rule, like the word is from around the league. Some guys like Tom Bogert are reporting that he said another MLS official told them that Miami were screwed. Like they're gonna have to go dump players, and it's gonna be very interesting to see what they do with a week to go.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's like one of those kind of strange things that no one knows the rules. And in some ways, that's adding to the chaos ahead of this in terms of what we know and what we don't. And that makes it hard to, hard to judge. But I'm with you. I think that obviously this Miami side are stacked, right? There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And I do really like the Gressel signing. I actually think that of all of them, that one feels like the most sensible move that they've made yet, to add someone with not only the experience in the league, but as we kind of talked about at the top, that wand of a crossing foot, but also the kind of nous to do various things and change the game in different ways that maybe wasn't utilized quite so much at Columbus, but it feels like Miami will come to rely on him maybe more than people are expecting right now. And yet, this defense still worries me. I don't know how it's going to play out in terms of who can play. And as you say, there is a sense of how many times are we going to get them, on a regular basis together? And there are going to be injuries. This is the problem with hiring, very, very talented, but also coming to the end of their career veterans, is that we are starting to get to the point where those absences are going to become more and more common throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, if those guys are going up to, Montreal, how likely are they to play? Like all four of those guys say, hey, yes, I really want to play this game in Canada in, August or whatever. Or I want to go to Dallas and play in the Heat in June.
Yeah.
Like,
the Olympics, right? And the Olympics.
And the Olympics.
Messi goes off to the Olympics, so it's going to be interesting. And the Copa America. There's loads of things going on here, right?
It's going to be exciting, but it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Eastern Conference that we keep talking about, though, those two Ohio teams, they scare me, man. They're going to be, both of them, I believe, are going to be very good. They'll be right at the top. We've already talked about what both of them done in this offseason, not only to, add pieces, but to stay stable, because they both had a fantastic 2022-23, and to really stability is is the most difficult thing to find in MLS. It's a league built for parity. And so really, if you're able to maintain this model that's been successful, then you are really able to push that into the next year. And that's what's going to make you successful instead of signing a new star. Yeah,
it's about cohesion as much as it is star power. And they might find that to their chagrin later down the line. Maybe it's just this PSG Galactiques moment, and then eventually they'll realize that doesn't really work and probably try to build a squad that has a little bit more cohesion with it as well. So we will see.
I talk about this all the time, but I really do love coffee, Rank Squad. I've tried pretty much everything there is to offer out there, but recently I came across a new coffee experience that has blown my mind. Laird Superfood Creamers are crafted from the highest quality, all-natural, real food ingredients. I really don't think I'll be going back to anything else. My coffee journey feels complete. Are you ready to feel more energised, focused and supported? Go to lairdsuperfood.com and add nourishing plant-based foods to fuel you from sunrise to sunset. Use our promo, RANKS15, at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today. Our promo code, RANKS15, at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today.
Let's quickly touch on a couple of signings because I'm interested in your thoughts on these. Emil Forsberg has traded one Red Bull side for another. He's joined New York Red Bulls. I like this, I think that Forsberg is one of those really interesting players who, as an RB Leipzig have plenty of detractors, and that's fine. And there are plenty of reasons to dislike them. But I do think that when you look at Forsberg and his way through with Leipzig, he was the first ever real, alongside Yusuf Poulsen potentially, club legend, right? And that's the thing with having a club that has no immediate history. You're moving in there and be like, wow, I'm the actual first kind of person they might build a statue of. That's an incredibly weird place to be when I'm still alive and still playing. And now he makes the move over to New York. I think that, considering what we saw from the Red Bulls towards the end of the season, there is definitely potential in this team. And a lightning rod player like Forsberg, as much as he might not play every game, does mean that I think this team probably is on an upward trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what's really interesting is to see if Red Bull can draw fans, because they've had a ton of issues with really getting people. They don't, of course, actually play in New York. They play
in Harrison
at Red Bull Arena in New Jersey.
A really cool little stadium, man. I really like the arena in Harrison. It's loads of fun.
But yeah, if he can get fans excited and if he can get people over there, like it was again, Red Bull New York is not a team that has a ton of history. Their club legends are Thierry Henry and Bradley Wright Phillips. Henry obviously came at the end of his career, but Bradley Wright Phillips is still, he was with LAFC a few years ago. So
still knocking around.
Forsberg really has an opportunity to really push this team that it's been a model of consistency, minus the past few years. They rarely miss the playoffs. But if they can take another step past that is going to be where it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe my favorite signing is, I've got two. One's Peter Musa to Dallas. Now, I watched a lot of him at Boavista before he got that big move to Benfica. That didn't hugely work out, but I really like this from a fit perspective and from I think this is a player who, I said this about Giakoumakis before he joined last year. I feel similarly about Peter Musa. And obviously the question mark is whether Dallas can surround him with, talent that matches it. But I think you look at where Jesus Ferreira's best seasons were, and they were playing with Ricardo Pepi in front of him as an out-and-out number 9 that allowed Ferreira to drop back in and play as that kind of number 10 second striker role. And I think Peter Musa fits this bill to a T, especially if he can recreate that Boavista form. That's the last time he played, 38 games in a season. It's the last time he played consistent, regular football. And he was brilliant, so much so that he forced that move through to Benfica. They thought, I don't even know if Benfica thought we need him. They just thought we can't have anyone else signing him, and therefore he has to join. And it's been a bit stop-start since then. But with that move, I think there's a real scope for both Musa and Ferreira to explode again.
Of course. And, Ferreira, obviously, there's interest from abroad, but, what he can do, we saw a little bit of it, over the summer with the men's national team and whether they trust him or not. But Dallas have no issue producing talent. They're a talent factory.
Yeah.
And I feel confident that they'll be able to, find players. They might not be ones you've heard of, but there'll be players there that work very, very well with Peter Musa and with Jesus Ferreira and these guys that will, Dallas is already a tough place to go play, especially because MLS plays those summer months. They have an outdoor stadium. It's a really, really difficult place to go play when it's hot out. And if this team can take advantage of that, and if they can make these West Coast road trips, if they can get the points out of them that they need to, they can absolutely, be a force in that conference. So there's no reason they can't.
Yeah. The other one that I love is Hugo Kuipers to Chicago Fire. Now, Kuipers is someone I've been banging on about wanting Fulham to sign for the last sort of year and a half. So seeing him make that jump, not to a major European league, but to MLS, I think is one, great for the league. And two, I think the Fire have got a player here who I think is a wonderful forward, versatile, can play 9, can play 10, can play either wing as well, scores goals, is a nuisance in the box, does a little bit of everything. And you kind of combine that with the Kellen Acosta signing to stiffen up the middle of that midfield. And I think suddenly we're looking at a Fire team who are going from edge of playoff contention to potentially being top 3-4 contention. If this clicks, this could be a very, very good season for a franchise that has struggled over the last few years to find any sort of consistency.
They need it. They need signings like these in order to get something going. Like I'm begging. One of my favorite things this MLS offseason was Chicago's social media game. They had this whole beef, in air quotes, with footy headlines who leaks kits. And they're like, oh, you haven't leaked our kit. But they had this whole thing, and they've got a very nice kit coming out, to be honest. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Return to red, but it really making these signings leagues, the three things you look for, like league experienced, that able to produce immediately for a team like this, and they'll get fans there. Like, obviously, I believe people know who Kellen Acosta are, and they will know who Hugo Kuipers is.
They will soon anyway. Absolutely no doubt about that. I really, really like him. I think that's a massive pickup for MLS. And I think it's an even bigger one for the Fire because he really can do a little bit of everything. And I think he's going to score a ton of goals in Chicago, especially with Shaqiri knocking around behind him. That's going to be fun to see as well. So lots of fun and lots of nice things for Chicago fans. I wish nothing but the best for Fire fans now, and they've struggled for so long. Honestly,
Chicago fans in general, man, it's tough.
Yeah, it's not been great. So I hope that those two work out. You mentioned it there. We're going to finish this with a little bit of a chat on the kits because they are all now officially released and there are some really fun ones, some less fun ones. Should we start with what you don't like and then we'll work through a top 3?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think this has been a very, very successful year for jerseys with Adidas. The issue has been, and these are kind of the ones that I don't like, are the ones that just look like a template. There's always this whole deal, whether you like it or not, with the whole league being franchised, and therefore Adidas gets all the deals for the jerseys. But for too long, it was, oh look, that's a Seattle jersey, and then it's a Seattle jersey in red, and then it's a Seattle jersey in yellow, and it's not cool to look at. But they've really, really embraced identity, I think, this year, and taking some chances. However, I'm not a fan of Nashville's kit. Just the blue stripe, it doesn't quite do it for me.
No, I'm completely with you on this one. This one feels weird. I don't know why. It just feels weird.
Yeah, and I mean, yellow is obviously a very strong identity to have, and they'll have that black jersey.
Yeah, well, this is it. I think in my head,
still.
Nashville's colours are yellow and black because of those black jerseys and the success they've had. But I know that that's not correct. I'm well aware that this is just me. But equally, then when they have a blue accent on the home jersey, I'm like, hang on, that's wrong. It feels off. And maybe that's just the sense of it. But because the black jerseys became quite iconic as the away, and because, I don't know, maybe I'm conditioned to think that the team's home and away kit should be colour and accent colour. But when I then see the blue on it, it just, I don't know, it sends me a bit funny. It's like a reverse Boca Juniors almost. Exactly.
It's very interesting. I'm not a huge fan of Columbus. It looks like a Charlie Brown shirt, which is what people have been saying.
This is my favorite. I actually really like this kit.
It's your favorite.
Wow, I love the chevrons going on here in the middle, and I also really like. And this is a weird one. I really like the way that the sponsor kicks against the black. And actually, this is such a weird thing. But sometimes you get shirts, and I'll use Fulham as an example because it's obviously the team I know best. But for a year, Fulham had white shirts, black collars, black accents, and then a Visit Florida logo, which was blue. And it like a pale blue. And I was like, well, that doesn't look right. Like if the logo was black, even if they just, made the logo black, I'd have been like, okay, fine, that makes sense. But when it was blue, it really freaked me out. And I think that the white on the black band looks really nice from a Columbus perspective and then matches the white in the crest. I don't know. I really like this jersey.
I fair enough. And then, yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about, Miami so far, but they're it's just very off-putting how big their sponsor and how big their badge is in the middle of that jersey.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way, man.
I've got a thing about this, and I love Adidas right there. I think when I get Adidas kits, I feel very happy. I don't like Adidas central logos. I think that feels like a really Nike thing, and I know Puma do it a little bit as well. But I think Nike killed it with obviously those jerseys in like the 2002 World Cup. And I was like, oh, central logos, Nike thing. And now when I see Adidas do it, it makes me feel a bit funny. So I actually completely agree with you on this.
And you're not seeing it a ton of other places in the league. LAFC did it last year. But and I was okay with that jersey. It's not my favorite, man.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the good stuff. What have you got as a 3-2-1?
It's been, so this year, there's a lot of teams hitting anniversaries. Obviously, MLS has only been around for 30-ish years. But a lot of these teams have been around longer or shorter. Orlando, for example, is celebrating their 10-year anniversary as a club.
The legacy kit.
Yeah, legacy kit. But
it's so hard to get. It's so hard to get the Orlando jersey wrong, man. Like the purple is so iconic, but I really like the away. I really like the white with the yellow and purple, the orange and purple. I think it's class. Really pop.
And that new badge that they've done too is great. They killed it. I'm very happy that Nicolas Sedera will be in that kit if he's got to be anywhere, man.
Yeah. It's a really, really cool jersey. I'm pleased with what Orlando have done because the home kit's so iconic and there's so few teams that wear purple that it felt like trying to get the secondary kit right was quite difficult. And yet this the orange and purple accents on the white just really pop. And as you say, match the badge. Yeah, I think it's a dreamy kit.
Yeah, there's like you said, very few teams that play in purple. The only other team that I can think of is the Washington Huskies up north. They're a college. They've got some really nice like purple and gold like royalty. They just went to like the college football national championship. But even those I wasn't the biggest fan of what they did with their white, but what Orlando has done with that away strip is fantastic. And then another team that's celebrating an anniversary is the Seattle Sounders, their 50th anniversary, obviously. A club in 1974, and they've done. There was some leaks of this. There was obviously the whole EAFC leak, and I was
very
concerned.
Amusing, that whole thing.
But I'm very happy with the way this turned out. I'm biased, but I'm also very happy with the way the social team has handled this. They killed it. Some of their shoots have been just fantastic. There's some Brian Schmetzer, the head coach, he played for the team in the 70s. They've got some great like match cut shots, and they've got all these guys in what they're calling like the anniversary kit. And And they've really
it's
gone away
really
from
bold, man. Like blue and green together on a kit sounds like a recipe for disaster, but I think they've done a really nice job on this. I agree.
Like, the shorts are really what does it for me. Like, the shirt, yes, I'm cool with it. The pinstripes are very interesting. They've never really done something like that in their MLS era. But the light blue shorts are not something they've really done since this, like, I think it was called like Pacific Blue jersey they did in the 2010s, which was great, but it was a blue shirt, and they have never done it with a green shirt that I can remember.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. Unless you've got any more.
I would like to shout out Cincinnati. That white shirt. I'm a sucker for white shirts, man. I think they're calling it like
again, strong accents, isn't it? And look, I like this because the sponsor's in the right color.
There you go. And yeah, so I think it's going to be really cool, and really what matters is whether you play well in the jersey, right? The jerseys that are going to be remembered are the ones that you have a good season in.
That's what changes jerseys from good to iconic. If you have a good season in a good jersey, they become part of club folklore. If you have a bad season in a good jersey, you may as well forget it. And if you have a bad season in a bad jersey, everyone's going to kick off. So that's the way it works, huh?
Yeah, we got to go see how it goes, right? This Sunday and Saturday, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you're looking forward to in particular on the opening weekend before we call this a day? Because there's some really fun matchups to get this underway, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the featured one. It's Seattle LAFC. I'll be texting Dean all weekend, man. And, it's going to be a very, very interesting barometer to see where both of those teams are, who's starting, whether they can integrate those new signings quickly enough, whether their big goal scorers will be able to boost them. And, it's a game in LA in February, March. So it's going to be a really, really exciting one to go see.
Yeah, I think there's some real tasty openers. Crew versus Atlanta, I think will give us a nice steer on where those two are after the off season. As you say, LFC Sounders jumps out. I think that Philadelphia Union Chicago Fire game is going to be very interesting as well. Just to kind of see how quickly this Chicago side can kind of transmute, if you will, into anyone that could challenge, because the Union have been there and thereabouts for the last couple of years,
and they will be again.
They're not going. Yeah, they will be again. Right, that's it. That's where they're going to be. So to see how this new look Fireside gets on against them, super interested. And with that, I think it's probably time for us to call it a day. So all that's left for me to do is say a massive thank you to our chief MLS correspondent and one of our favorite people on the planet, Mr. Owen Murray. Thank you so much for being back on Ranks, man. We love having you on here.
Oh, anytime you need, man.
It's a real pleasure. Owen. Thank you so much for listening to this MLS preview. We thought we'd just rattle through a few of the storylines you need to know ahead of the opening week. My name has been Jack Collins. This has been Ranks FC. We'll be back on Wednesday with a main episode, on Thursday with a Champions League takeaway as well. Busy week here on Ranks FC. We hope you're going to stick with us through all of it. We'll see you very soon, gang. Take it easy. Peace. Final seconds of the game. A chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks.